Welcome back, guys. Dave Yandel, Harbor Park CrossFit, co-owner and coach here at the gym. This is day number 4 of 12 of our OnRamp program. Today we're going to be going over some barbell movements, most particularly squatting movements. So this will be the first introduction that we introduce most people to a barbell, and we're going to go over those 3 squats. It's going to be a back squat, a front squat, and an overhead squat. So start feeling what it feels like to have a barbell across the back, in the front, and then the overhead position. So this is going to build off of all the foundational movements that we talked about for the first previous days, mainly the air squat. So if we've been talking about having a good foundation in the beginning, nice solid feet, always keeping chest up. Now that we're adding weight to it, it's going to be more important. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with the back squat. So you'll notice that the bar is already racked in the rig for us. When we come in, I try to have people set their hands first. We want the hands to be just outside the shoulders. And when we come in, we're going to come up underneath the bar. The bar should be across our shoulders or our traps. And then you're just literally going to come up underneath the bar, stand straight up, and then step back. Now, you notice that I'm staring straight ahead. I'd like most people to pick a spot on the wall or the horizon out in front of them and stare at that position. One thing that I see common is when we set up and come out of the rig, we look down and then we step back and we're staring at our feet. Now we're going to set our feet and then I'm going to look up. Now at this point it just automatically puts me in a bad position. It kind of puts my neck out of whack and I'm kind of already feel like I'm falling forward. Now I don't even have a lot of weight and I can see that the weight is kind of pushing me forward because I've already set my spine out of alignment. So we'd like you to come in, pick that spot on the horizon, push the bar up, and step back. You can feel your feet without even looking at them, and you know where they're at. You can set them just outside your hips, slightly pointed outward with the toes. And from here, I'm going to keep elbows down to my side because I want to activate my lats and keep everything nice and tight in the back. It protects my spine. Another common fault is allowing the elbows to flare out the back, which again does not protect the spine. It kind of lets me be really loose in the core and then in my back muscles and puts a lot of pressure on it. So if we bring those elbows down to my side and squeeze the lats, now I'm nice and tight in the core. And we also want to then squeeze the belly, okay? This is important. So now that I have weight in my back, when I squat down to help keep that chest up, it's a nice tight core because we don't want things to collapse as we go down at the bottom. Okay, so I want to think about filling my stomach up like a balloon full of air, pressing against it and then squeezing. And then as I go down, we're going to descend to the bottom, knees go out, tracking over the toes, below parallel, and then press out of the movement, pressing the knees out as we come up. All the while staring at that spot in front of me on the wall. Again, I'll show you. Chest stays up, then out. So again, breathing here is important. Maintaining that nice tight core at the bottom. If you don't have a tight core and I'm not squeezing those elbows down, what I'll see is we're going to come down to the bottom. We'll tend to see this fall forward. And then it becomes all that more difficult to press out of it because I'm pressing against nothing. It's just my legs. If I'm nice and tight in the core, squeeze those abs, I can press out of it. And most likely you'll be able to squat more weight. That's the back squat. Moving on, we're going to talk about the front squat. The different variation in the 2 squats is front and back. So now the bar is going to go across the front of us. First, I tell people we're going to set our hands to the bar. They should be just outside our shoulders. We're going to grip the bar, okay, with good force. I want you to grab it. You almost like you own the bar, okay? Squeeze it with your hands, and at this point, once we have the bar in control of our hands, we're going to come in, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Okay, so now I'm sucking the shoulder blades back, keeping them nice and tight. And then I'm going to come through like a motorcycle, like I'm revving that motorcycle up. And coming through with those elbows and keeping that bar in, we call this the front rack position. I think we mentioned that in day number 2. After it's in the front rack position, which is across my 2 shoulders and kind of up in my throat, it's not the most comfortable position, I understand that. But I want to think about keeping my elbows as high as possible or out front, like the laser beams pointing forward. Another way to think about it is there's strings attached to my elbows, and they're attached to the ceiling, and they never go down. Again, picking that spot on the horizon in front of you, you're going to squat down, keeping that chest and elbows up this time. All the way down, all the way up. Below parallel, and then up, driving those knees out. If I don't keep that bar racked high on those shoulders, which, by the way, keeps the weight out of my arms, I can hold a lot of weight this way because it's across my shoulders. If I drop down and allow this bar just to rest kind of on my chest here, it becomes really heavy, okay? Make it easier for yourself. Again, if I'm coming down and I don't keep those elbows up and I drop, now at the bottom, let's say I have 100 pounds in my hand or even 50 pounds, whatever the weight is, it becomes really heavy. Now my elbows, I'm just supporting this all with my arms. And the bar wants to pull me forward. If I rotate back, it allows me to keep my chest up, again, and I can squat more weight. Very important, again, to keep the core tight. That allows us to not bend forward at the bottom of that squat. And finally, the overhead squat. We'll talk about how to get the bar overhead later on in OnRamp. We'll talk about snatching or cleaning it and then pushing it overhead. For now, what I want you guys to do is we're just going to grip the bar like a back squat. We're going to come up underneath the bar like a back squat. And once it's racked across my shoulders, at this point, I'll just have you guys widen your hands about double the length, and then we're just going to push press or strict press it up overhead, and I want the bar to be overhead. Now this is a very difficult movement. It requires a lot of motor control. It also requires a lot of mobility. So if there's any type of shoulder restrictions, hip mobility or restrictions, calf or ankle restrictions or mobility, it will show up in the overhead squat and it'll be very difficult. But we're going to assume that we don't, and we're just going to go through the movement. I'm going to talk about this. As I press out overhead, I want to think about active shoulders. Some people talk about armpits forward. So I'm going to face my armpits forward towards the wall in front of me, out, okay, and I want to make sure that they don't rotate. Rotating means that those armpits are going to fall underneath and kind of point down. As I move, that allows a lot of rotation in the shoulders. It's a lot of shearing force on the shoulders, so we don't want that. Armpits forward, and we want to press out and lock those elbows out as if I'm holding up the ceiling. Okay, so my elbows are locked, my wrists are locked out, and my shoulders are locked in. So to keep active shoulders, I want you to press through the ceiling, elbows are locked, and now my wrists are back too, okay? From there, I want to squeeze the shoulder blades together. That allows me to keep the shoulders stable and in the socket. And from there, I want to kind of bend the bar like I'm bending it like a stick. Okay, that allows, again, more stability in the shoulders and allows me to squeeze those shoulder blades through the movement. The bar movement should be towards the back plane of the body or straight over. If I were to have that ponytail, it would come down and cut off the ponytail. Okay. From here, my feet are going to be set like a normal squat, slightly pointed outwards. And this is where it's really important to keep an upright chest as we sink down into the bottom of that squat, pressing up, squeezing the shoulder blades, pushing the bar locked out, and then all the way up. So nothing changes if I don't keep those elbows locked or arms pressing through the ceiling or active shoulders. What will happen is I'm going to bend and it becomes all the more difficult and this bar is going to start wobbling. We don't want that. So lock out, squeeze. We want to keep it as stable as possible, especially as this gets heavy. It becomes a lot easier to control. Any type of wobble when there's a lot of movement is really difficult to control and it's a lot of force on the shoulders. If you notice when I brought that bar down, I kind of absorbed it, squatted down, okay? And then we will just re-rack. Those are the 3 squatting movements we talk about. We go into a little bit more depth. That was just a quick overview of those movements for day number 4. Again, we can scale any movements for the individual person or range of motion restrictions. Generally, the most scaled movement would be the overhead squat. And sometimes we work up to those movements with the scaling options to try to eventually get you to do those movements. Again, thanks for joining me. I'll see you again on day number 5 as we discuss nutrition.